Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to the video. Today I'm covering a patron deck and I've been wanting to look into this deck for well over a month now, but I kept on having issues with the audio and well, you remember how it was when I was in Vietnam. The recordings just kept on failing. But I'm back home now. I've been sick for a few days and I felt it's about time I cover this now, so we can have a look at what this deck is all about. And the deck today is a deck that has been made by none other than Shahin. For those of you that frequent the Spellgrotten online armory event, you probably know Shahin already because he does show up there every now and then. And for those that have been grinding XP back in the days that Alara Games was still doing the online event, you know Shahin for sure because Shahin is known to kind of think outside of the box in terms of Blitz, and he has a lot of very cool decks, one of them being this merchant deck right here. So the merchant deck in general, it has been a D tier hero for the longest time. However, we got so many good generics nowadays that merchant is starting to get better and better every single set. Like especially with Wotchuneed's hero ability, you can sometimes get like a very good cash in turn where you can go all in with a bunch of very good generics, which makes the deck only better every single set release. So the problem with merchant right now is like we only have Talishar the Last Prince as the weapon, and you can only attack 3 times with this, which means that when you go into the late game, sometimes you run in a bit of trouble with this weapon because it generates a bunch of rust tokens and then it gets destroyed once it has 3 counters on there, which is a bit on the sad side. But on the plus side, we do have Arcanine Skullcap, Fiandal Spring Tunic to go to legendaries that pretty much every hero uses, and Merchant nowadays has Silver Palms as well. The cool thing about Silver Palms is that this one can block 2 damage, and even though it gives your opponent card advantage, if you block early with it, you can get that 2 damage block straight away, and you can move on with your turn after that, which does allow you to usually keep 1 extra card in hand, which means that you have a bigger turn on your end, which can be quite valuable. However, you are able to play the slow game a bit, where you do allow your opponent to generate some silver tokens, and then you just full block their turn until you draw into your cash in, and then you go all in with a massive turn on your end, which can be a good way to play this deck. We have plenty of arcane barrier sources as well. The arcane lantern is a bit strange in here because running an arcane lantern does mean that you cannot bring the Talishar because the Talishar is a 2-handed weapon. But maybe in some niche situations it's better to just get the lantern and have like 4 arcane barrier available to you. I don't know, I would need to ask Shahin about this, but from what he said, even though this deck has a lot of very good generics in it, it does struggle against decks like Kasai and Viserai, like most of the other Blitz deck in the format, so it's by no means of the imagination an S tier deck. However, against all the other decks that tend to play a more grindier, slower game, a deck like this can really punish them by using a lot of very good cards. So which cards do we have? Like Shahin is running 2 copies of Bingo, 2 blue Brutal Assaults, 1 Coax Commotion, 2 Command and Conquers, 2 Enlightened Strike, 2 Snatches, 2 Last Ditch Efforts, which is really nice to have if you go into the late game, 2 Pursuits of Knowledge. This one is very janky because he also runs pummels, I've seen, so if you can get a Pursuit of Knowledge onto the field and you pummel it, it's kind of nice. We have Fire Breathing here, which is a 2-drop. Like normally you would say that Exude Confidence is better, but simply because it is a 2-drop and because it has a very good synergy with pummel, that makes this one, kind of strange. Like, I don't know how to say it, it creates a very cool synergy. Like you play this one, you have a bunch of cards in your hand, your opponent doesn't know are you gonna use the instant to buff the fire breathing, or you could suddenly pummel out of nowhere and they need to discard a bunch of stuff. And especially like if you can get the opponent to double block this one, for example, and then you play the pummel, then they still need to discard another card, which can be kind of brutal for them. I do think running an Execute Confidence would maybe work in a list like this. I'm not really sure what to cut. Maybe the Caucus of Commotion and one Bingo could go in favor of 2 Execute Confidences, simply because they tend to be able to lock out the opponent from using defense reactions, especially if you use the instant early on before the reaction step, then you can do some cool stuff with that. But we have a lot of very efficient 4 attack for zeros, like Scar for Scar, Snatch as well. And Light and Strike is always a very good card. So a lot of really good attacks, really high value attacks. You almost don't really miss Merchant not having its own attacks, simply because of the sheer power of all these generic things out there. Does mean that the deck is a bit pricey, like Command and Conquer and Light and Strike still fetch quite a high price point, but the deck isn't bad. It's a good deck, like especially with the Pursuit of Knowledge, which is something I think more people should explore. I've heard some stories from a friend of mine that a prison player used it against him and tried to pummel it in order to get, for one, get the +1 intellect and also make sure that the opponent doesn't really have a turn. So I do think the Pursuit of Knowledge is a card that more people should try to play going forward. But that's just my opinion. I haven't really tested much with it. It's just some theory I have that Pursuit of Knowledge could be kind of janky and nice to play. So in terms of reactions, we have 2 yellow pummels, no red ones, also a bit surprising, but I do guess that yellow pummel can be used in order to pitch to use any of the various 2 attacks. We have Razor Reflex to give our lower attacks go again on demand. And let's see, the Razor Reflex targets a sword, so I guess you can even target the Teleshar, because that one is a sword if I'm not mistaken. Let's have a look quickly. Yeah, it is a 2-handed sword, so Razor Reflex should be able to hit that one as well. And we have a bunch of very nice defense reactions. Fateful Scene, Sink Below, both very efficient defense reactions. And Unmovable is our go-to blue defense reaction. This one is mostly for blocking, but you can block 6 with it in a pinch if you're up against a Guardian player or something. So finally, 2 cash-ins. Like, this hero wants to generate a lot of silver tokens, not copper tokens. So with just 2 silver tokens you can play this card and draw 2. So kind of like a Pot of Greed in Yu-Gi-Oh terms, which is kind of cool. Like, you can go from a 4 to a 5 hand by playing a cash-in, or you could even arsenal it and wait for that very big turn where you just play both cash-ins at the same time. Then you can how much value do you get? Like +2? Like, you play both of them, you draw 4 cards, so that's like 2 cards of extra value. The Talisman of Recompense. Personally, I wouldn't play the Talisman. Like, I would probably just run another blue in the deck, but since there are kind of a lot of red cards in this deck, I guess the Talisman can be useful in some situations, but I don't like cards that don't block, simply because we are in a format right now that there are so many on-hit effects, so I'm not really 100% sure if Talisman is a good pick here. This Rounds on Me can make the opponent's turn a lot worse. They do get some extra card advantage, but if you're against a slower hero like I don't know, like a Guardian or something, then that -1 can be kind of crucial for them they can kind of ruin their turn in a way. Art of War, also a very good Majestic to have. Like, you just banish one of your attack actions, you draw 2. You can give either Go Again to one of the many big attacks in this deck. You can give Go Again to something like a Command and Conquer, for example. Or you can just give +1 to everything, which is also quite good. Sigil of Solace, the go-to Command and Conquer lure. You just put this thing in your arsenal, wait for the opponent to play something like a Command and Conquer to try and destroy your arsenal, and then you just play a Sigil, and they kind of got a bad Command and Conquer turn. Then you can even take the damage, because, well, what are they gonna do, right? Like, in the worst case, they pummel it, you discard something, so Sigil of Solace is really good. All in all, the deck looks very fun. It looks very fun to play, at least. And I think more people should give it a chance. Like, it's not S tier by any means, but unless you're playing Viserai, Kasai, or something like Chain, then who cares, right? Like, you just build a deck that has fun, where you can get like 1 or 2 wins at your armor events. From what I've heard from Shaheen, he has around a 50% win rate with this deck, which is rather decent for a meme deck, if I can call it that. And I'm kind of curious what will happen with Merchant in general, because I feel they are so close to becoming a good deck. Like, they just need like one proper specialization or something like that, and then they can go all in on the Merchant plan. I wonder if Merchant will ever get any specialization, either Kugane or Genis here, but it's a really fun deck. I've played around with a version myself as well. I guess my personal version of Genis I will share over on Patreon sometime this week. It's very similar to this one, but I play a bit more of an aggressive build. I don't really rely on stuff like Pummel to get extra value either. I like just a generic go again aggressive build with lots of 1 and 0 drops that come in for forward go again. That's how I personally like to play the deck, but everybody has their own version. And yeah, let me know what you think. Do you play Merchant? Have you been doing anything fun with it? How has your Merchant been performing in armor events? I guess not many people would take something like this to a skirmish. And yeah, I mean, thank you to Shaheen for sharing this deck. I will put the deck down in the description so everyone can hop over to his link and check it out. And yeah, that's all for me. If you want me to do a deck for you, you can always reach out to me over on Patreon, and I will feature your deck on my channel in the near future. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.